Welcome to the Innovation Conversation, a podcast about innovators, both in business and real life. Hosted by myself, Ricardo Pascual, and Harry McDonough. Today's episode is sponsored by Hyperskill. Hyperskill is a learning and training platform that enables people from all over the world to learn new tech skills. If you're looking to learn new tech skills, this is a platform to choose. You can find out more about them on hyperskill.org. Today we're talking with Bradley Hornby, one of the founders of Homebound. Welcome to another episode of the Innovation Conversation. Today we're joined by Bradley Hornby, one of the founders of Homebound, and he's going to tell us all about Homebound. So Bradley, if you want to go ahead and just tell us a bit more about yourself and Homebound.
Hey guys, Ricardo and Harry, thanks for having me. So my name is Bradley. I'm one of the co-founders of Homebound. We're essentially a marketplace for furniture rental. A key focus for us is direct to consumer. But as we've launched, the B2B side of the business has actually really grown as well. So it's been an exciting, albeit challenging journey so far. And I'm excited to dive into it a bit deeper with you guys.
Oh, sounds cool.
Right.
So do you want to kind of tell us and our audience a bit more about how this idea came about and how you got started? I read a bit on the website, but I want to hear from you because it's always read one thing and there's always a bit more of insight. So
yeah, of course. So I mean, unlike I think a lot of founders have like this dream, right, or vision from 5 years old, and sort of it transpires. It was a little bit different from my side. My other co-founder, Oscar, we worked together at a company called Fever. It's just actually reached unicorn status. I was in charge of all the revenue for the business and took them through 4 rounds of funding, but I was only in charge of the revenue as such and, seeing what they were up to and sort of raising funds and, growing this amazing business. This really attracted me and I always wanted to do something similar. So I actually left the business, went and got married in Cape Town, and the plan was to take... it was fantastic. It was great. A lot of wine. And the plan was to take a year off, go traveling, and then come back and, sort of work out what's next. Unfortunately, COVID was 3 months around the corner. So I only got about 3 months into this, planned year of traveling. And then I came back to the UK and had a bit of time. Obviously, that nobody was really hiring. I mean, if anything, everything was on freezers. So I had a fair bit of time on my hands. And Oscar and myself got together and we were like, no, look, let's definitely start something. And we got to have a look at what's working extremely well in other major markets. But hasn't quite taken off in London or Europe for that matter. And so there was two things. And so alongside that as well as the whole sharing economy, sustainability, that side was really attractive, but we just wanted to work out, what commercially would sort of stick. So there was 2 ideas. One of them was toy sharing, but obviously being COVID, nobody was swapping anything. I think
that's right.
Yeah. So we thought this didn't really have much legs. And then on the furniture rental side, it kept on popping up. And I think, not to sort of branch off too deep here, but if you think around society at present, home ownership is becoming harder and harder. So what you have is sort of a sticking point where people are renting more and more. So they're moving, often with every 2 years, they get to move to a new place or they have to move to a new place, whatever comes first. And what happens is you then have people who don't want to spend a lot on quality furniture because they're not sure if what they buy now is going to fit into their new property. Is it worth buying this? Will it fit? What's going to happen in 2 years' time? So there's a real big sort of sticking point around that. And there's no company, yet, and sort of unlike ours, that's very simple in terms of you can go on, you can pick your item, you can pick how long you want to rent it for. Really nice quality. We'll come deliver it. Use it as much as you want. And then if you get to the point where you've actually paid as much as it would have been to sort of buy the furniture, you would own that item anyway. So this was really unique. Yeah. So anyway, this was the one we sort of doubled down on. We put our own money in to test the sort of the MVP, if you would. Yeah. It worked really well. So we did 40,000 in the first 2 weeks. We were like, wow, this is fantastic. We've definitely got something. Yeah. Flip side of that coin is, so when we first started, we were putting our own money in. So somebody would rent an item, we would buy the item, deliver the item, and then just take the rental income. Now, the rental income does make more than the sort of buying the product. The problem is that takes time. Yeah. So cash flow wise, it's a very tricky business to sort of get up and running. And unlike the US, people in the UK don't go and raise a pre-seed MVP 2 million, pound round here, right? Or you can, but you really would have had to prove concept, in some really significant way. So it's a lot trickier here. So we then sort of went back to the drawing board, went back to our suppliers, and this is where the whole sort of marketplace thing comes in, is we now work on a revenue share model with our suppliers, which makes the whole idea much more scalable, right? So we're not losing any money up front. We can acquire consumers at a relatively cheap rate, and effectively have that long tail revenue. And the nice thing is we worked out with the suppliers that we will own those items at some point, in which case we will end up taking 100%. So the model then really started to gain some traction, and we closed our pre-seed round in December last year. So it's been, really, really strong growth this month, and we're about a month out from getting to the 85 million ARR, which has been a sort of a really big, goalpost for us for some time. So yeah, sorry, I waffled on a bit there, but that's in a nutshell.
This is actually quite interesting. So when you started the business, you're literally putting your own money in. And only after you've been quite successful, because you had a lot of clients, and you got to the point where you're actually lacking cash flow, did you actually go back to the market, but not so much to get investors, but to talk with your suppliers and say, hey, can you guys offer us some type of deal here where we work together, we share the revenue, and you still haven't gone to investors until this stage, up until this stage, right?
No, up until that stage, no. So the problem is if you looked at the financial model before we spoke to these suppliers, the only real way you actually get to prove concept, sort of, get past the pre-seed stage, is by raising £1 million. There's just that. The thing is the financial model, without splitting that revenue and having those initial upfront costs, your cash burn is just so high that it's very rare that you find an investor willing to take a gamble like that. So our whole thing is, okay, well, look, we needed to go back. So we did fish around. It wasn't like we didn't. We spoke to a couple of investors, and they were all like, look, you're absolutely crazy with a financial model like this. You need to go back to the drawing board or pick another idea. So look, we were quite convinced at that point, right? We had spent, very little on marketing. There was clearly traction. There's clearly a demand. Nobody else is doing this. It's working really well in other markets. We were pretty confident at this point that we were onto something. We just needed to find another way to crack the nut, right? For lack of a better word. So went back to the suppliers, agreed the revenue share with the suppliers, then went back to those same investors, one of which actually jumped on board and said, look, we've taken what you said on board. We've gone back. We've managed to negotiate. And I presume, having a look at the way that they've done in the US, this is pretty groundbreaking in terms of actually getting suppliers on board, happy to split that revenue. And this is where that marketplace idea comes in, because we have live stock feeds directly into our suppliers. We don't hold any of that stock. The risk to us is very low, but the upside to both parties is very good, provided we can keep those items out. And one of the key aspects of the business model, which we were very concerned about, and it's something that you don't really know the answer to until you've gone through, a couple of years to actually see what's happening, is when those items come back in, what are people like? Are people okay with secondhand furniture? Because in the US, it's quite a thing. People are quite used to it. It's not a big thing. But in the UK, how is it going to get taken on? And actually, it's called Pre-Loved on our website. Pre-Loved.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, Pre-Loved is our highest hit page. People spend the longest on there. And on average, 95% of the stuff that comes back in goes back out within 3 weeks. So clearly, we're now really starting to understand, okay, well, actually, provided it's, so we do give a 20% discount to all items that have been out previously, but actually people don't mind it. And I suppose if you think about, sort of boil it down back to the basics, rented furniture is obviously going to be used, right? Like if you rent anything, if you rent a car, you're not expecting it to be brand new. So there's still, look, it's early days, right? There's a lot we need to find out, make mistakes on, stumble over.
Yeah. Well, the other thing would be quite interesting. I was definitely a lot of information to digest, but you mentioned a really big buzzword, which was circular economy.
Yeah.
And again, if you look at the way funding works and the way the businesses work across the UK, they always go on buzzwords such as AI, circular economy, sustainability, net zero, and everyone kind of looks to take advantage of it as well. And what you're doing is fantastic, because it not only takes that away, or that risk from dumps and other individuals, but it provides a pre-loved aspect. But how did that buzzword really help you kind of get to where you want to be? Has it really provided that momentum?
Yeah, good question. So, when, and I'm sure a lot of people, especially business starters listening to this podcast, when you're filling in those, the type forms for investors, right? And you have to sort of circle a bunch of things to say, what you are. I guarantee you circular economy and sustainability popped up in like everyone. So it definitely opens the door to the next round. The issue is, and especially in that early stage is, where although it does become circular and sustainable by nature, in the early stages, you're still pretty much using a lot of brand new items, right? So you really have to try and explain the long-term goal. But back to your question, Harry, look, it certainly helps and it definitely opens doors. I think a lot of investors now, you need to be ticking some of those boxes, especially if they're investing in that sort of space, and you need to show why and how, and, can you prove this on some level? It's still early for us, but we do want to understand. I mean, it's really tricky, right, to try and measure these things. But, if, for instance, we manage to keep a sofa out in the economy for 4 or 5 years, can we try and pin a sort of number on carbon, how much that's saved versus, how often people would get rid of those? I'm sure there's a way to do it, and I'm sure we'll definitely to dig down a bit deeper. But yeah, back to your question, it certainly helped quite a bit.
You're definitely on the right track in regards to all, because again, it's with the rental properties increasing,
exactly,
everyone kind of struggling at the moment. It's a really, really good business model, and especially when you see all this furniture. And the one thing that's really stands out is if you were to go to a dump, for instance, you do have to pay exorbitant fees to get rid of a bed, to get rid of the furniture and couches. But giving them repurpose in life is a really, really good model. And it also follows the model of that in Japan and a couple of other countries. And I know big brands like IKEA also do something similar, where you return your old furniture, recycle it. It's a great ethos aspect. But the Japanese did a very good approach where they don't throw any electronics away. I know yours is furniture, but they recycle everything. They recycle 95% of all electronics, and your whole business model is great. It's fantastic. But the other thing,
no, just touching on that point, because I think it's a great one, and we've been chatting about this a lot. So we started at the tip, right, where we know that it's easy to acquire the furniture. We know where it's coming from. We know how to get it delivered. That's all great. But I think we're literally scratching the surface on how much more we could be doing. Because, and look, I'm not saying that we could, be across the whole of the UK, but certainly in major cities, we could definitely be in, especially across Europe. It's definitely on the roadmap. But like, there is so much furniture that's either going to get thrown away or that's on its way. And there's no reason why you can't start scooping that stuff up, making sure it's in really good nick. I'm not saying, we don't want to we need to make sure that there's a level of quality we maintain across the site, right? I don't want to go and grab a chair from the dump and start renting it. But there is a huge amount of items that end up going to the dump that certainly could have another lifespan. So we're very much early doors, but there's a lot more we could be doing across that. And certainly in the coming years, we'll start targeting it.
There's also quite an interesting one down in Elstree in North London, but just on the outskirts, where there's a dump that actually repurposes all the equipment and sells it on and kind of puts it in their own little pocket as an additional revenue stream. But if you've been down to the dumps recently, you see all those nice TVs, all the really nice stuff. That it's a very rich area. It's going to have really rich items.
Exactly. They've got those whole containers full of TVs, fridges. I mean, you can just go and have your pick.
But take them.
There you go. So we did think. We did think about
a big problem in a city like London, because there's a lot of people always, leaving London and arriving to London. You get a lot of people who literally just leave all their stuff behind.
Yeah, absolutely.
And where's it going to go? All to the dump, which is a waste of things, right?
So there's a lot of companies similar to us, Rover, to name a few, have gone on to raise hundreds of millions, but they obviously sort of recycling on the tech side of things, which makes a lot of sense. We did look into it, although again, capital-wise and everything else, you need to have a significant backing. We looked at electronics to bring in because we get asked it a lot. A lot of people, if you're going to rent a full house of furniture, you would like a fridge, etc. There's one hurdle on the electronic side that we're not quite at the scale to cover is all those items would need to be PAT tested yearly. Like there's a lot of health and safety that goes on the electronic side that you just don't have on the furniture side. So it's definitely something we would like to explore. But again, you need to have the head count, and it's sort of a whole nother strand of a business that you really need to be built for.
So what about the R&D aspect of this as well? How much research and development do you do in actually defining these ideas, looking into these products, and really finding new ways to innovate and change? Is that a really big aspect of what you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, so it's really hot question at the moment. I had a board meeting the other night, and we discussing our seed round at the moment. What aspects. So up until now, on the tech side, the tech build, we haven't really done anything. And the reason why, so we've strung together, like if you had a look under the hood, you'd be like, oh my God, how do these guys survive? Because everything's sort of, stuck down with sellotape, but it's working and it's fine and we're growing and it's good. But part of the seed round is going to be building something sort of from the ground up, the marketplace that we know we need. Because in the beginning, a year and a half, 2 years ago when we were discussing this, the problem with starting tech first is we don't really know what we're trying to build, right? We don't really know what the customers want. We don't really know what our suppliers need. We don't really know what we need. So the problem with diving into it sort of tech and R&D first is we don't really know what we're building. That being said, we've now had a solid year and a half of understanding exactly what we want this to look like, what we need in capabilities, functions, what suppliers need. So we're now going to, as part of the seed round, have a significant portion of that seed round will actually go to building the sort of the research development, the tech side of the platform, and then the R&D tax credits as well. I believe that they've gone down recently.
Yeah,
quite a chunk. But yeah, it'll form a big part of our next round. Is actually doing that side. We just needed to understand a little bit better what it is we're trying to achieve on that side.
So this is quite interesting.
And then what about user validation as well? Are you going to be looking or working with other accelerators, innovation hubs to kind of validate this? Is that kind of your pathway, or just getting out there and seeing how it goes?
So we were. I won't lie. We've only just started to discuss it. I think around that side, the accelerator side, we're definitely in a good position to go. And I think we sort of getting. I mean, not late to the game, but a lot of companies don't come here when they're at $1 million ARR and stuff like that. However, I still feel we're very much early doors, and I think joining something like that to help us along the way could be hugely beneficial. But it's something that we need to discuss in much more depth before sort of nailing it down.
Interesting. I was just thinking, it's quite interesting the way you've built your business, because if you read any website or any book about entrepreneurship, they always said, no, you need to go and get investors first, and then you need to spend a small fortune in software development because everything needs to work all the time and absolutely perfect. Where your focus, from what you just told us, was literally just getting clients, right? Let's get some clients. Let's get money and furnish it through the door to make sure everyone's happy in the process, and then let's worry about everything else. Let's worry about getting investment or getting a higher amount of money in the business. Let's worry about actually building a very tech heavy type of business where we actually. I'm assuming you're leaving off spreadsheets right now. I could be wrong.
I mean, spreadsheets. So you should see the order process. It's fantastic. But look, the thing is, it's definitely full. It's a full-time role. Right, myself and my co-founder put in a hell of a shift to keep the wheels moving. But it's what we've got to do now. The thing is given the model and given how it's very rare in the UK or Europe, there's not many like it. Yes, there's been success stories. We knew that in order to make this work, we need to prove concept first and prove it in a significant way. And even when we move in, hopefully our aim is to get to that $1 million ARR next month. And even when we're there, because a lot of VCs say, look, you need to get there first before we start having, meaningful conversations. This magical $1 million ARR seems to be a real tipping point. I'm sure when we get there, they'll say make it 2. But anyway, let's focus on the one for now. And our whole thing is that once we're there and we can prove that, look, this is a business, we're there or thereabouts on break even, all we need now is to really double down and build something sustainable on the tech side and really double down on the marketing. We've got, really good ideas and focus on what our CAC is, how long, average order value, all of these things. I mean, look, I'm sure it'll change next year, but at least for now, we feel in a comfortable position to actually go and present this, to potential VCs and say, look, this is where we're at. Does it excite you? Because it certainly does us.
I was just say, it would be quite interesting to get your view on one of the big areas there. Working as an entrepreneur, it's a lot of dedication. But at the same time, you mentioned you're working on this full time, so you'd have no other role outside of this. This is full-time commitment. It'd be quite interesting to our audience to see, how are you finding it? What's it like? Is it a very lonely world, or is it full on exciting and, as they say, adventurous?
Yeah. So look, it has its days, right? There's some days when you absolutely. The thing is, it often I've noticed my days track revenue score. So if we're having a really good month, I'm in a really good mood, and I don't mind it. But the months when we're not tracking where we should be tracking, I find it quite hard. And then the thing is, the small little things will irritate you, right? Like processes that are delaying things, or we could be doing better here, and we could be doing better here. So it's been quite a challenge. The nice thing about being the owner of a company or the founder of a company, however you want to call it, I find that during the day, if I do start to flag and get tired, which I'm sure happens, I'll quite happily just walk away from the laptop for an hour, just take a stroll. I've got a dog, I'll take the dog for a stroll. Like I'll just sort of break away for a bit and then come back and crack on. And I think the reason I'm a little bit less hard on myself for doing things like that is I know that I'll have to switch on the laptop at 8 p.m. and crack on for 2 hours. And I mean, throughout the day, we're certainly making up the hours, right? We're not sort of ducking the hours. It's just like sometimes if you can feel that you're not really being productive, shut the laptop for an hour, go for a walk, have a glass of water, a cup of coffee, whatever's your vice. Because it can become, super long days. And if you're doing repetitive things, it helps just to break away a bit. I'm actually I'm going down to Cornwall on Sunday for a week, which I'm really looking forward to. And I've told my co-founder I'll be turning my laptop off at least for 2 of those days. I need to pick which.
That won't happen.
I'll still have my phone, so I'll get the emails.
So this actually brings us to an interesting question, which is, how do you and your co-founder manage this workflow or this flow state? Let's call it this way, right? Because you can't always be on 100%, and also you need to communicate well with the co-founder. So how do you manage this process? Because I think a lot of, even me and Harry, whenever we're recording the podcast, it's like, it's go time, it's no go time. It's time for me to rest, it's time for me to work. How do you manage that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And we were saying the other day, the problem is, and we're really struggling with this at the moment. It's a real big pain point. We're hiring for an operations manager. Mm-hmm. The problem is the operations manager that we're hiring for, and this is why we're probably struggling to hire for it. It sort of sits between somebody who's fully behind a laptop and somebody who's going to be in a warehouse making sure orders are going out, coming in. It's a bit of a dual task, and we're really struggling to find somebody. There's a lot of operations managers who just want to sit behind a laptop, and then there's people who just want to sit in the warehouse. And we're really struggling to find the combination of the two. So if anybody knows anyone near Sutton who's looking for an operations lead role, please send them my way. But to sort of come back to your story, the reason why we're looking for this role is Oscar and I are so deep in every movement of the company that it's really hard to pull away from those processes and let somebody else sort of come in and manage that, because you keep on checking in, like, is it getting done correctly? Do they fully understand? Like, me and Oscar just sort of are on the same tune the whole time about it. We know when orders come in, this is what you do, this without even talking to each other. And me and him need to try and stop this, right? And let somebody come in and give this task to them, because one of the, and I'm sure you guys know, and especially a lot of your listeners will, is, raising money, and especially when you go for the seed round, that in itself is a full-time job. Raising money is an extremely hard, especially in this climate. So, on your point, Oscar and I work like clockwork. He very much manages a lot of the operational side. I look after the revenue side. So we fit together really well. We understand what everyone else is doing. However, it can't just be me and him running this, right? We need to, we need to get people in. We need to trust them. We recently hired another account manager. And again, she's now looking after a lot of the inbounds that are coming in. I find it hard to stop myself from going in and checking on each of those leads. Have they been called? Have you sent an email? Where are they? And as a founder, you need to, and look, I'm struggling with it at the moment. You need to try and step back and trust the people you hire for those roles to do those roles, and almost be the sort of the guiding light behind. But it's tricky.
Yeah, it's part of the journey.
I was saying, I might go on to another point there in regards to hiring individuals and people that you really, really trust.
Yeah.
Would you be open to giving shares to someone who really fits into your ethos and can really get you to that next stage? Is that something that you would ever consider?
Yeah.
There is that structure about giving shares out, bringing people on, or giving people shares too early and kind of going down this year approach. Yeah. You mentioned about trust. You mentioned about fitting into the ethos, working, kind of taking things and stepping away. Is that part of what you would do normally? Or is that something that you to learn and kind of go into it as well?
Yeah, so for all the roles, bar a couple, sort of the delivery drivers and stuff, all of the roles that we're hiring for now come in with share options. Those share options, like most share options in the UK, I think this is pretty common actually, but a 4-year vesting period. So in my mind, so we got a 6-month probation period, and then the sort of the normal vesting over those 4 years. More than happy if if you sort of getting over that year mark, you're clearly you're adding a lot of value. We've got a very sort of hire quick. If they're not fitting in, let's sort of make changes quick as well. The thing is hiring, and I did a lot of hiring in my previous role. It's extremely, like, you get a good gut sense and you can ask a couple of questions and you can get as far as you can, but it's a sort of, let's say max 2 hours conversation throughout the interview process. You're not going to know somebody like the back of your hand in that time, right? But if you have a good feeling, they've done really well in the past and you've checked references, if they come on board and they're doing really well, then, in this early stage, they're contributing to you guys getting there. I think that dilutes a little bit when you get to 50, 100 employees, that sort of additional add is less and less. But when you're a team of 4, 5, 6, 10, the extra hire, it's significant value to what you guys are building. So, yeah, I'm a firm believer. We definitely do offer shares, and with the caveat of there's a vesting period. So if I do make a mistake, or if they make a mistake, which sometimes happens, at least there's sort of time to move away.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think that's probably the reason why a lot of people, when they think that they are competent enough and they believe in their skill sets, that's why they want to join startups, right? Because they want to build something that they also believe in, instead of just working for a very large corporation where actually they might not feel either as valued or feel like they're actually making a difference. Where if you join a startup early days, everything you say, it's going to be a valid point and everyone's going to listen in and actually can change the way the company is being built. So
I was actually at Amazon for a couple of years before I went over to what was a startup 7 odd years ago now. And when I moved from Amazon, which is like, you walk in, that's your laptop, this is your job, completely structured, exactly what's happening, 24/7 going into the startup, I was just like, wow, what's going on here? This is different. But like, some people really excel, right? I quite like the fact that I don't have somebody breathing down my neck, 24/7. This is the role. This is what you need to do. And this is what it looks like. Good job, great job, an excellent job. Go on and crack on. And I think some people like that, right? Like the ability to really add value to what they're doing. You come in a startup, at the end of the day, if you've had a great day or a shit day, you fully understand those bits.
Yeah, it's fair. I wanted to ask you something regarding the business itself. How big is like the warehouse you guys have? Is there a warehouse? Is there not a warehouse? How do you manage this process? Because moving things around in London is quite complex, by itself. But also, how do you make sure that everything's well packed, nothing gets destroyed in the process? How does that work?
Yeah. So firstly, we work with really good suppliers, and the reason I flag this is, so there is a cheat code to what we're doing. We could use really cheap suppliers that would massively increase our margins. The problem is, and this is the downfall to the cheat code, is none of those items would last. So I don't know if you guys have ever tried to put an IKEA wardrobe together, let's say. Once that wardrobe is together, you're never taking it apart. Yeah, you're never taking it apart and putting it back together again, right? So by using really good suppliers, where it's, solid wood, metal, stone, it's stuff that's going to last 5-10 years, right? We know that we're investing now to get a really big payback at the end. So that was key in the sort of the starting our process. And also then customers have a level of quality that they can expect, and we can hopefully grow a really reliable sort of consumer base from that, one that recommends their friends, etc. In terms of the warehouse, so yes, we do. It's 3,200 square foot. It was like, wow. When I signed the lease on it, I was like, wow, this is crazy. Mom, look at me. So yeah, we got a warehouse. We've got guys who are there. So a lot of the packaging, so with the suppliers that we use, the packaging itself, I mean, it's crazy how much packaging they use. So we actually recycle a lot of the packaging they use. So if they go and they do a delivery, they will take that packaging back. We'll store the packaging. If we get that item back, we'll put the item back in that packaging, obviously seal it back up. The thing is to go out and to be buying all new packaging, it would be such a waste of money. Like, there's nothing wrong. You know what I mean? If you fully glad wrapping these things and boxing it up twice. There's no reason to be doing that twice. So a lot of those items are sort of packed again in the same boxing. Again, we haven't had any issues. I think consumers quite like it along the whole sustainability, circularity side. And then with the items that do need to be obviously redone, we have a team in there who's doing it. Thankfully, and I'm sure this problem will scale as we grow. At the moment, it's super manageable what we have coming in versus what we have going out. I'm sure, as we grow, that headache will only grow as well. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
I want to pick up on your point about the recycling aspect. I know we spoke about the circular economy a little earlier on, but would you ever work with other companies that are working on innovative approaches such as biodegradable waste? I think there's cork and there's individuals that are trying to do alternatives to tree and wood and other areas. Would you ever incorporate that into your warehouse logistics, what you're doing, your packaging? Is that a key feature for the future?
Absolutely. So one of the things, and we've spoken about this, I think I've probably spoken to more about Oscar than anyone, but so sofas is a really big thing for me, right? A lot of our sofas sort of clip together. When they clip apart, you can fold it onto each other, and that the sofa sort of, it fits quite neatly in, it's just, you slide it into a box sort of thing. You could easily create like a very durable bag, for lack of a better sense, not really bag, but maybe even like a thick padded cotton bag that you could go take it to a consumer's house, sofa out, take the bag back, and you could use that 100, 200, 300 times. Just keep it going, right? And you would never need to use plastic again to completely sort of seal that. So 100%, there's definitely got to be better ways than what we're currently doing at the moment. So yeah, it's definitely part of the roadmap. I don't think we should be, buying new bubble wrap every time, which is why we, reusing what we currently have. Because it's a huge waste. And we're doing, dump runs at the moment. The nice thing is we work with a company that actually pays us for our cardboard, the stuff we do get rid of. Obviously, we need to get rid of the plastics. But you don't really want to be adding to this mess, right? If anything, you want to be deducting from it at some point.
Yeah, that's a weird question, but have you ever considered working with the local councils as well? Like just reaching out to them about looking at the dumps or the suppliers? Because I know you get a local individual turn up with a little van, picking up all the used materials and other stuff, and they're just looking for someone to help get rid of it all. Is that something you consider?
Yeah, so we've signed a partnership with the British Heart Foundation. So at the end of any life cycle we have of any product, let's just say it comes in, we have a look and we're like, look, it's, we can't really justify charging anyone for the product. Although it's still in really good nick, it's just past a commercial lifespan. We work with them, they come and collect the items, take the items and give it, to their sort of charity or whoever sort of needs it on their side, which is great. I think, the partnership at the moment is still very young. Obviously, we need to get to the point where there's a lot of, items ending their commercial cycle, if you would. We're not there yet, but I'm sure that will scale. And on your point of the councils, it's a great point. We should probably look into that a bit more. Yeah, I'm sure.
It's rewarding but hard.
Yeah. Right.
Cool. So I guess, we're kind of reaching the end of the podcast. Can you tell us where people can find you if they want to find you? So where can they look at you?
Yeah, of course. So just a quick one on that. Probably a little bit more for the UK listeners, but so we've just been through an FCA approval. So if you rent anything for longer than 3 months, you got to be FCA approved. Huge challenge, huge amount of work. There's been a couple of people who reached out to me recently asking for advice and contacts around that. So if there's anyone listening who's going through that, feel free to reach out. Obviously, my name's Bradley Hornby. You can find me on LinkedIn or just bradley@homebound.co.uk. As I said, pick it up pretty much 24/7. So I'm sure I'll get back to you.
Thank you. I guess that's it. Bradley, thank you very much for your time. Me and Harry really appreciate it. And I hope our listeners go on your website because you have really, really nice furniture. I hope my girlfriend does not go on your website. Just spend some money. So, but
thanks. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate you having me.